Queen's Path, A Revolutionary Guide to Women's Empowerment and Sovereignty by Stacey Simmons, Ph.D. Author's note: throughout this text you will hear stories shared by my patients. All of these are told with their permission. Many of the details regarding people in my life and the lives of my clients have been masked, and names and details have been changed to protect their anonymity. Introduction. Women in Captivity. Women are one half the world's population, and yet the world is hardly fair to us. We struggle with empowerment, but anyone offering a solution wants our money. Culture doesn't want us to own our sexuality, and yet we are expected to put it on display for everyone to comment upon. We are entreated to long for motherhood and partnership, and then belittled if that is all we do. We are constantly lectured about how emotional we are, when historically it has been our job to put the feelings of children and partners above our own in almost every context. Life constantly tells women who to be and how to be it, and tells us what's wrong with us. And then it turns around and tells us to just lean in to the challenges we face. To understand ourselves, women must first look at not only our own hopes, dreams, and fears, but also the systems in which we operate and try to realize those same desires and ambitions. This book is about women. It is about women as we are taught to be, and who we can become when we look beyond the options given to us. The path that women wind down is not a linear journey, but instead an ever-turning spiral, one where we regularly engage with the same events from different vantage points. To know women is to understand the complexities that women endure. Most of us long to be who we were instructed to be: thin, powerful, in control, beautiful, brilliant, and effortless. The ideal of womanhood has become an archetype so far from what is attainable that many women ultimately reject the ideal in favor of the possible. Most of us live saddened by that, or are downright ashamed. No one seems to question whether these binary choices are real, good for anyone, or simply based on a system of oppression. This work is the culmination of years of research. The story of the queen archetype and the worlds that she moves through are complex and elegant. Decoding the queen archetype was only possible because there has been so much change in recent years. Women hold important positions in government, the media, academia, and business. The model described in this book appears in story after story, regardless of the medium being employed to tell it. The model is intuitive. Writers have been reproducing it for millennia. You will find the queen and her model in everything from ancient Sumerian myths to the Hebrew Bible, all the way to the present day in movies like Frozen and television series like The Handmaid's Tale, Cruel Summer, or Killing Eve. I have worked in and around entertainment most of my career, so it is natural for me to easily find the examples of these elements in movies and television. Inevitably, though, the same elements appear in any stories where women are prominent. This is true whether the authors, actors, historians, screenwriters, memoirists, or directors intended to follow an archetypal path or not. As we go through the steps along the Queen's Path, there are some familiar and unfamiliar paths we will place our glass slippers onto. I am asked frequently if I'm writing a woman's version of the hero's or heroine's journey. This is a difficult question to answer. It would not have been possible for me to recognize the steps of the Queen's Path without the work of Joseph Campbell, Chris Vogler, Carol Pearson, and Maureen Murdoch. However, I disagree with my esteemed colleagues Pearson and Murdoch on the arcs that they describe. There are similarities between the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, and the Queen's Path. But I found my model by analyzing all kinds of narratives, from fairy tales and films to personal stories from my psychotherapy patients. I broke down the key elements long before comparing them to the work of other authors and researchers. The biggest difference for me is that on the Queen's Path, the woman herself ultimately has to decide how she will combat the cultural expectations placed on her. These constraints are structural to her journey in ways that they are not for a hero. Her path is marked by the individual woman's or female character's struggle with predefined categories put on women by culture or society. It is up to her to ultimately decide her own fate and come to terms with her own sovereignty in a world that would prefer that she fit into easy tropes that either keep her small and docile or punish her for becoming big and powerful. The Queen's path denies that these tropes are the only options for her, but to overcome them, she must work through them. She cannot ignore them. The Queen overcomes these binary choices, becoming whatever version of herself is the most sovereign truth for her to run her own life according to her ideals, goals, ambitions, gifts, and talents. Not a heroine's journey. A queen doesn't take a hero's journey. That's not to say that some women don't take hero's journeys and that there aren't men who take the queen's path. This archetypal journey describes what women face in a society where they are not historically treated as equals. No one asks Clark Kent if his job at the Daily Planet will interfere with the expectation that he will want to marry and have children. No one tells Indiana Jones that to have it all, he will have to sacrifice his masculinity and be better than and subtly flirt with the women at the university where he is a professor. No one tells Frodo that he needs to lean into the troubles befalling him and be a better version than the female hobbits as he gets on the road to Mordor. No, as we read these stories or watch these characters' stories unfold, the assumption is that these male protagonists are already expected to be on a rarefied journey simply by being called to the quest. We describe the quest in inherently male terms most of the time. Female characters have simultaneously been dissuaded from these quests and also subsumed in them. People are often uncomfortable saying that women are qualitatively different from men, and yet that is exactly how we are portrayed in a telling of the heroine's journey. You will find descriptions where she eschews all that makes her feminine to be on the heroine's journey, taking on increasingly male roles and attributes. You will also find descriptions of the heroine's journey aligning her with a path through the underworld, where she meets a goddess or god, and then only a supernatural encounter can ultimately free her. The problem with these descriptions is that the path of the female character in these stories is in relationship to a male protagonist, a presumed male experience, or to an assumed weakness of her sex. Women in real life, or as characters in stories, do not exist only in relationship to a man or to maleness. The Queen's Path acknowledges that all women have to confront society's expectations of what women are. Individuality has been much more difficult for women to assert over the millennia. Each woman has to move through the realization that we are given a role. The reality of being a woman is that, more than anything, culture, and by extension jobs, families, spouses, and children, want us to fit the archetypal models more than they want us to be individuals. We hold ourselves to those ideals as well. It is not at all difficult to see that the interlacing systems of expectations will easily consume our individuality just to feed the machine of culture. The struggle for women is that along the Queen's Path, we have to separate from the expectations of society. Before we can find ourselves at the end, defining our own domain and being sovereign, we must first recognize the separation, the experience of being divided. Ultimately, we are expected to align ourselves within a set of parallel expectations. The possibilities for women are usually limited. We are good or bad girls, tomboys or ladies, Madonnas or whores. All these are false dichotomies. Women cannot free ourselves from them without realizing that they are not handed to us as personal expectations. We must recognize that they are handed to us as uniforms that we are expected to inhabit throughout the course of our lives. Society has attempted to make the story of women's lives about these polarities, attempting to force women into one of two damning choices. Either you are a typical woman or an atypical woman. You either love dolls and makeup or abandon them to be more masculine. You're either an ideal female or not, which often gets truncated to simply being masculine. These binary choices are not representative of real women's lives, nor are they representative of the characters' lives in novels, television.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?